Seeing the angry face of the monster in front of him, he said that he just wanted to play out of boredom, and the monster was glaring at him. In this critical situation, he saw another problem. His armor was falling apart. He reassured himself everything was fine, because that was to be expected. After that, he furiously rushed into the attack, because to top it all off, he was too easily enraged. As he jumped, he started throwing strong and accurate punches, essentially. The guy really liked the feeling of increased power he was experiencing. Plus, he strongly enjoyed swinging his sword and throwing magic around, but something he didn't like at all. He accidentally stumbled and fell, not realizing how it happened, because that's when he died. And the next thing he heard upon his awakening were a woman's footsteps. Everything was foggy, so he wondered if he was asleep. Someone was coming toward him. When he saw the woman, he wondered where she had come from. Did he have a fan following him around? And as luck would have it, he wanted to sleep in this situation. Apparently, he was exhausted from the recent battle. The woman who came walked over to his bed and touched him. Then she leaned over and kissed his forehead. At that moment, he smelled that she smelled like flowers. Such a light morning kiss, and from such a beautiful woman. Just lovely. Then he wondered, had she really been around all this time, admiring only him? He soon realized he couldn't hold back any longer and wanted something more with her. He rose to kiss her, and soon realized it was just an illusion. He was actually in some other body, apparently an infant body. Realizing what had happened, he couldn't believe it. So, as a baby should, he immediately started crying. The woman next to him called him Arl, thinking he was just hungry. But that wasn't what made the protagonist cry at all. He realized he was reborn again. However, he couldn't believe it. Most likely, he had really died in his past life, but he didn't understand exactly how it had happened. As his new mother carried him to his crib, he thought about the fact that, unlike other people, he was reborn every time he died. And it just goes on and on and on. This is his 100th rebirth. If memory serves him correctly, he can say that his first life was spent in Korea. That life was hell, endless interviews, job searches, monotonous routine, and in the end, this dreary life ended with an equally dreary finale. When it was abruptly and tragically cut short, he was reborn for the first time. When he woke up, he was surprised to find himself in the body of a baby, and in a completely unfamiliar family of foreigners. Since then, he has been reborn again and again. Moreover, he has traveled to different worlds and eras. But the scenario of his life only repeated itself time after time. He doesn't have much to brag about. He's just used to this state of affairs and went with the flow. Thus, rebirths after death became something quite ordinary for him. But now he was really wondering, where had he been thrown this time? Looking around, he decided that, judging by the interior, he was somewhere in the Middle Ages. But hardly being back on Earth is illogical for a rebirth, so he's probably in some other world. Though, come to think of it, other worlds are even more to his liking. They are usually much more comfortable due to their technology and level of service. And now it seems he was really lucky. He was born rich, perhaps even into a family of aristocrats. There are even maids here, which is nice. So he must be from some kind of noble family. That in itself is a big deal. And his mom also seems to love him. The woman inquired if he had eaten well, but he did not understand her speech. Of course, this world has its own language. This happened quite often. At first, finding himself in a new world, he did not understand much. But his new mom's warm and gentle hands and her loving gaze spoke for themselves. She really loves him, and it's obvious. During his rebirths, the hero has changed hundreds of mothers and can say for sure, many of them give birth to children simply out of a sense of duty. As bitter as it sounds, there were times when he was abandoned immediately after birth, or forced to work off the life given to him. But he has a good feeling about this life. While he was pondering this, his mother was approached by someone calling her Mrs. Lafana. It was the maid who said that if the mistress was tired, she could leave the prince in her care. This information greatly surprised the protagonist. It turns out he is a prince. In addition, it was very strange that the expression on his mother's face suddenly changed drastically. She immediately asked if everyone else recognized this child as a prince. The maid, without hesitation, replied, "Naturally, he will be recognized." But the woman didn't believe her and told her not to pretend, because they were alone here anyway. She probably thinks badly of him too. However, the interviewee objected, saying that it wasn't true. The mistress apologized afterwards, explaining that one of the maids had recently allowed herself a little extra. It was at this point that it finally became clear to the hero why the expression on his mother's face had changed. She went on to say, although her son was a prince and had imperial blood in him, his fate would definitely not be easy. It would have been easier if Arel wasn't a prince. She, for her part, hoped only that her baby wouldn't hold a grudge against her. The woman knew that everyone was just discussing her and her baby now. Because of her, her son has no right to inherit the throne, all because she was a mere servant. So she apologized to the little boy. Then he held out his tiny hand to her. He did it to wipe away her tears. Lafana got excited and asked Sina if she had seen it. The kid seemed to understand. The boy really didn't want his mom to be sad. After all, he was fine. He didn't care that he wouldn't inherit the throne. After all, the life of a prince was already lucky for him. He would simply ignore the pesky nobles. Even the imperial family wouldn't be able to control him, and the prince's life no doubt promised to be eventful. The protagonist rejoiced that his 101st life turned out to be the life of a dream. He ended up being the son of the emperor and his former maid, such a half-breed. It was a life that could be spent quite nicely if you stayed out of politics. Since the emperor's blood flowed in him, he should at least be provided with more or less comfortable conditions. At least he hoped so. Joyful because of this, he laughed, drawing attention to himself. Lefanu was happy that her baby was so happy and carefree for now, but if only she had the power to shield him, then things would be so much better. Aurel thought she was right after all. Strength really couldn't hurt anyone. After all, any native of the nobility must be able to stand up for himself, so we'll have to learn. He's used to it, though. The lack of the right to the throne is weakness, and no one needs a weak man. If you are weak, no one will even stand up for you. Most likely, on the contrary, they will look for a way to get rid of you. But his new mom really has nothing to worry about. Her son has lived many warrior lives. 3 months have passed since the protagonist appeared in this world. All this time, he slept carefree, enjoying his new life. His mom was next to him. She looked at him and said, smiling, that he was an angel when he slept. He also really liked the beautiful color of his hair. Soon the maid informed the mistress that the carriage was ready. Then Lefana said she would be out soon. Before doing so, she kissed the baby and said she would be back soon, so let him not miss her without her. Then, as she said, went to the carriage. Left alone, the hero wondered what kind of beautiful dream he had. While he was pondering this, he involuntarily made a sound. This made him wary, hoping that the nanny wasn't running to him yet, because he doesn't get a second's peace. Since he is a child, everyone is just watching him. The hyper-parenting was making him very tired. Since he was alone, he thought it was worth checking something out. His future depends on it. He hoped that the imperial blood contained at least some ancestral power. If so, he needs to learn how to use it. Remembering his past life, the guy decided he needed to focus. He knew very well that in this world the strongest ruled. If a man was strong, no one would dare to oppose him. At least he could utilize the experience of the previous 100 lives. Even in the body of a child, he could accumulate inner strength, and so he found out that the power was available here. Then, for example, he could already try to use the Hongwan-Chance techniques from his 30th life. That being said, it was also worth trying to train Seon-Chonji and Hongwanji at the same time. Even in a child's body, he thought that these techniques would work for him. No one would even think that a child at such a young age could practice. If everything goes according to plan, by the time he is 10 years old, his inner strength will increase many times over, and by the time he is 20, he will become indestructible. But first, he needs to focus on his own energy as best he can. That way, Errol can train anywhere, even at the babysitter's neck. And now he felt the necessary flow of energy throughout his body, so he decided to speed up, to unite this flow and bring it together. He was even beginning to feel the power in his hands. But soon my head began to split, so he made the decision to release all of his stored energy. And he did. Hearing some strange noise, the maid immediately ran into the room. She was worried if the prince was all right. However, seeing him just lying peacefully in his crib calmed down a bit. Although the guy was pretty tired and thought he needed a break. Finding nothing strange, Sina decided that perhaps his diaper was just wet. Errol at that moment only wished she would go away and not touch him at all. Even from a slight touch, all the stored energy could simply disappear. So he was literally mentally begging her to do nothing. The maid only sniffed to see if the diapers were okay. Turns out they were fine. So she decided that perhaps the prince was just having a nightmare, after which she left him alone again. This was just what Arl had been waiting for. Now his energy was at its maximum. All he had to do was keep it up, and that was it. But soon there was a problem. He started to get feverish. The hero only hoped that the infant's body could withstand it. Though I guess it's better to die than to live like this. In the body of a weak infant, you need to build up more energy as soon as possible to cope with this condition. He realized that it was necessary to pull himself together, for it was all for his well-being. Suddenly a strange sound came from the young prince's room again. The maid came running to him again. What she saw really struck her. The young gentleman was covered in sweat, but it was unclear why. After all, he had just slept. I should probably prepare a tub of herbs and bathe him. Having made that decision, she left the room once more. And the hero, as usual, stopped pretending. Happy that it worked. Soon, he was already changed into clean clothes. This cheered him up so much that he started laughing joyfully like a real baby. Sina said he's feeling great, which means he's just doing great. It was so great to see the boy smiling carefree at her. Errol mentally thanked the gods that the babysitter hadn't noticed anything. Using the mana concentration technique, he could easily accumulate mana in his body, and he didn't even have to do anything. He got stronger just by eating or sleeping. Realizing this, he could barely hold back a smile. It looked like his face was about to crack. In 3 years, he will have accumulated so much energy that he will be as strong as most adults. And when he turns 10, no one in this world will be able to harm him. Even if he lives another 100 lifetimes. Suddenly the maid heard some noise and wondered what it could be. But the baby made a sound again, so she was just pleased with his adorable smile. The boy, meanwhile, was only thinking about getting stronger, and then he'd have a royal life. And he just couldn't wait for that moment. I can't wait for that day to come. And now, it's been a full 5 months since his birth. Thanks to the mana absorption technique, his physical capabilities increased greatly. His internal energy was stored faster than that of his peers. Mana was collected automatically. It's okay if he's just crawling around on the floor. In time, his power will be unleashed to its full potential. While he was immersed in his thoughts, he suddenly felt someone grab him. Turns out, it was his mom. She had noticed how active her baby was, and now she wanted to show him what she had brought. She had a cute toy in her hands. The hero couldn't understand what was happening. He didn't know why, but he was just stuck. He couldn't even look away. Looking at his mom, he was horrified to think that she seemed disappointed. So he laughed sweetly, and she was immediately pleased, figuring he liked the toy. Though by virtue of his rebirths, he felt Spanish shame. The maid said the young prince looks very happy. Lafana noted that he just likes the toy, and mommy will play with him often. He's such a cutie after all, and it's unclear who he was born so handsome into. The boy was surprised because of this question, thinking that of course he was into his mom. Next he decided he would be a flirtatious juvenile, since he was loved. Overuse it. At this time too fleeting, and therefore priceless. Suddenly he felt a sense of hunger. It showed on his face, so we asked you if you were tired of playing. The boy cried, thinking everything was wrong for he wanted to eat. He also cursed the child's body. The nanny saved the situation by declaring, the prince must be hungry. And soon, as he ate, he and the mistress were discussing the financial situation. Sina stated that the prince needs to be well fed, and since yesterday, funds have been allocated less and less. Mistress noted sadly that she knew that, but he's afraid there's nothing he can do about it. The maid replied that it's really not easy to take the mansion's maintenance budget has been cut drastically this year. Thus comes out of then same one child is hard to raise. Errol realized that he had heard a similar conversation from the maids not too long ago. They talked about having to even save money on Mrs. Lafana's diet. Otherwise, not everyone will survive this season. It's a shame, of course, but there's no other choice. Then the heroine thought that was it, they were serious. Now his mom said he wouldn't die of hunger, and that was fine, and they'd get through the rest. The maid offered to save money on security, and now the heroes have realized the truth of it all. So his mom is really just a simple concubine. She has no power or status, even with the fact that she gave birth to a prince. She went on to say that the situation was made worse by the fact that it was winter. She continued to say that the situation was aggravated by the fact that it was winter. She didn't want to make a big deal out of it, but right now even farming wasn't going to work. Errol was surprised that things were so bad. He'd hoped, since he was a prince, that he wouldn't be allowed to die as a baby. Soon the maid brought up the idea of what if we asked His Majesty. The lady pointed out that it was very difficult to see him, and he had been very busy lately. The hero was finding out where mom kept going. It seems that she never managed to get an audience. As cruel a ruler as he was, it was unacceptable for his father to behave this way toward the mother of his children. I don't know why he's doing this to this poor woman. She's had enough abuse from various noblemen. Therefore the boy was faced with the question of what to do. Even if the king was initially indifferent, this attitude is unacceptable to her. He felt very sorry for his mom, so he cried. The maid thought he wanted his mom, so she handed him to her. Errol at that moment only really wanted to help her. Even though he's a child, surely there's something he can do. That being said, nothing much comes to mind. But he's bound to come up with something. Night had fallen, and the protagonist sat pondering that all he needed to do was survive the winter. Basically, it's all about the lack of money for all their needs. In winter, a new expense item appears, and that is heating. Serious thought should be given to exactly how it can help. Suddenly an interesting thought popped into my head. What if I tried this? If you think of it that way, coal is a carbon structure, and it's exactly like the structure of diamonds. The boy, in turn, noticed that his mom was wearing gemstones, and that just means that in this world they are valued too. Now then there is a simple solution. If money is not available, at least precious stones, he will try to find. That's why he tried to climb over the barriers of his crib, but it failed, and he only fell down because his legs are too short. If that failed, then one must still consider what to do with the amount of mana he has. It didn't take long to think, and he used the skill with which he was able to fly. Now he thought he could fly to his destination. No one is going to keep track of the charcoal anyway, and more importantly, there's a lot of it. Now, with a slight movement of his hand, he'll turn that pile of coal into diamonds. This is not the time to be fooling around, and we need to focus. You need to make gems out of them while everyone is still asleep. Remembering how to do it, he decided to proceed with the intended action. First, you need to convert the bathtub to heat energy, and then locally create the pressure and temperature necessary to transform the same coal. In this case, you shouldn't be shy about spending mana at all. He'll still accumulate more if he survives. At the same time, energy must never be allowed to leak out. It was hard to do this in an infant's body, and it was necessary to squeeze the energy harder and harder. Aurel realized that he simply had to unleash even more internal energy and hold on until the last. There's only a little bit left to achieve his goal. If everything works out, Mom will be happy indeed. May Mommy continue to smile and enjoy life. So for his mom's sake, that's what he was trying to do. Using his power, he raised a thick smoke. He headed up the chimney and flew outside. And after it was over, the boy rolled effortlessly over the fireplace railing. But when he came to his senses a little, he saw the diamond in his hands and realized that everything had worked out. The stone he was holding was so beautiful and shimmering. So it was definitely a diamond. Now all we have to do is slip it to Mom somehow. It was already an easy thing to do, and he rejoiced because of what he'd managed. It was morning their boy's maid arrived, wishing him good morning. But when she saw him, she was very much surprised. He was sitting on the floor, so also howling soiled. So she asked how on earth he got out of his crib. After all, it's very high up there and it's unclear how he managed to get down. Hopefully the boy hadn't been lying on the cold floor all night after all. And he's a little dirty too. I wonder where he got so dirty. Maybe it's the eels left in the fireplace. Even the blanket had fallen out, which meant His Highness had been frolicking all night. Surprisingly, the entire floor is also covered in dirt. The maid didn't realize if it was just that the palace hadn't been cleaned in a while. Lucky the baby didn't freeze from the cold. Arel only thought she shouldn't worry. He realized that his body was fine, and that meant everything was fine. Soon Chaina noticed that the young prince had something in his mouth. So I asked him if he swallowed the thing. Let him better spit it out. And in order to do so, she touched his mouth. Because of this, the boy had no choice but to spit out the diamond. The nanny immediately took it in her hands and there was no limit to her surprise. She only asked where the prince could have found it. It wasn't lying on the floor for him to just find it. It's really amazing, because she's been cleaning this place so meticulously. So there's no way she couldn't have seen a diamond like that, and it's worth a decent amount of money. He seems to be the reason they can get out of this tricky situation. Their prince was just smart to find it. The boy at that moment only wondered if his mother would like it as much as his nanny. After the incident, strips of people poured into the palace, which was overflowing with supplies. People finally got enough firewood to get through the winter. Oh, and the empty kitchen pantry was quickly filled with various products. All in all, the very little that the boy had created was sold to the highest bidder, and the money from its sale is enough to cover 5 years of living expenses. As she thought about it, Lafana wondered if they had done the right thing, if that diamond belonged to someone. But the maid reassured her that it couldn't be. Previously, this castle had followed almost 100 years before she'd stuck around. She thinks it was just a gift from God sent from heaven for their prince, Mistress remarked. Perhaps it was true, and she was very glad. The hero, for his part, thought about her just waiting for him to grow up, and then he would relieve her of all her worries. Addressing his majesty and part-time father, the boy thought he would hear more about Arella. He would personally open his eyes to him. All winter long, the palace was warmed by a fireplace. The financial situation at the palace has also changed for the better. Now Lafana was eating a lot of food, but she didn't understand why she needed so much food, because she couldn't eat it alone. The maid just told her not to think about anything and just eat to her heart's content. One of the maids went back to work and was very happy about it, and Chaina told her to thank the prince. It turned out that the rumors that had to be dismissed were rehired. But the most important joy for the main character was that his mom stopped being sad. After all, she's so beautiful when she smiles. The winter, for its part, has been very cold, but they spent it warm and cozy thanks to money. And it's been a whole year since then. Mistress along with the maid and chose the outfit to wear for the baby. The nanny asked which one she would wear and the lady said they were both good. After which, she simply offered a third option. The boy began to change into the same clothes. It's the other way around. He wasn't happy about it, wondering why this whole dressing up thing was such a drag. I wonder if there's some kind of celebration going on if they're making such a fuss. At that point, he was already very tired. So wanted with you, the prince was left alone. In order for them to do so, he fell down and started crying hard. So the women realized he was very tired and put him in his crib. The maid said that today they would finally formally introduce the prince to the imperial family. This made the guy a little surprised. The lady remarked that this was true. How glad she was that they all managed to get through the year safely. Her son must be recognized. He may still be a child, but he has imperial blood in him. And a birthday is the best occasion for that. Ordinary noted that I'm sure His Majesty will show up. He can't ignore the girl forever. It's just that nowadays they try to stay away from newborn babies. While they were discussing this, Errol realized that his birthday was coming up. Lafana said that it was necessary to prepare the most lavish banquet possible. Her son will officially become one with the royal family. She's grateful to God that the laws of the empire are at least on the boy's side. He understood his mom's intense anxiety, but smiled at the same time. And if it's a banquet, that means all sorts of aristocrats will be here. He'd still like to see his daddy, though. And it wasn't long before the intended event took place. People all around were having fun and the tables were overflowing with food. Errol liked the atmosphere, but wondered how much money had been spent here. Besides, everyone around him is so dressed up. Isn't it nice to dress up for a banquet? His mom lifted him up in her arms, asking if he liked it. Not that he liked it, he thought, but just gawking and pleasant. Then the maid said he was a little confused by the new faces. The prince, after all, had never seen so many people, Madame noted. If that was true, then there was no need to be afraid. He's the most important one here anyway. Already at that moment, the boy noticed something strange. It was the stares of the people, as well as their whispering. He realized that the aristocrats were already starting to leer at him. But in principle, who really needs them? But you just need to ignore them, that's all. And in general, it was not at all clear to him where the damn emperor was even walking around. Theorel Ernesia, the man that is his father. The boy wants to look into the shameless back of the man who never once showed his nose after making a baby. But what does he care how that man lives? He just needs to know what he looks like in case he's got a bad heredity. Quite soon after the banquet began, these people did show up. And we're talking about the imperial family itself. Watching them, the little one marveled at the state, the reigning empress and her children. Look at that woman. She looks exactly like the empress. And the children look just like her. Must be his half-brothers and sisters. It looks like this guy is the oldest of them. He really stands out. And these are his younger siblings. It's funny, because even the redhead's shy. That said, it's unclear why they're all so serious. Errol was pretty pissed off about it, because they didn't pass his mom by as if she didn't exist. Hearing the boy, the mom asked what happened. Let him be patient for a little while because it will be over soon. The hero was happy that despite everything, his mother was smiling. And then he heard people discussing that, with the arrival of the Empress, the banquet shone with new colors, because she was very beautiful. Arel didn't take his eyes off his mom, and suddenly saw an amount of strange. Her gaze became very concentrated, and she was apparently confused. So I wondered where she was looking. To find out, he turned his head in the necessary direction. And there was also a man walking there, and people were saying that it was necessary to greet his majesty. It turned out to be the very same emperor and part-time father of the boy. Upon seeing it, the hero was dumbfounded, wondering what kind of energy was emanating from it. It turns out that this man just passed by, and the chatty nobles and their servants immediately fell silent. Everyone, in turn, bows their heads to this man. Errol, feeling the power standing from him at the level of your own instincts. And so his father turned his gaze in their direction. The boy immediately wondered if he was looking at him, or she's still looking at his mom. It's a pity he's not born with the ability to read other people's minds. It would be nice to know what they're all thinking. After a while, the boy began to be given gifts. More and more aristocrats came up and said they were honored to see him. When it came time to congratulate the imperial family, it got worse. One of the women said that Prince Errol was so small, and she expressed that she was miserable. They were not shy to openly express their attitude towards the hero and his mother. The guy is really more than him, and he thought this girl was just a bitch. He couldn't understand how dare she say such a thing, wouldn't even consider them for human beings. Principe is like everyone else behind him. So maybe he needs to test their ears with an infantile ultrasound. His mom was trying to calm him down by asking him if he wanted milk. Then he realized he didn't have to do anything but embarrass his mom, so he's gonna be a good boy. Hypocrisy is commonplace here, unfortunately. I wanted to get out of here before he fell asleep right in his mother's arms. Suddenly, he felt a tug on his. Someone pulled hard on his cheek. It was painful enough, and it's unclear who did it. It turned out to be a girl from an aristocratic family. She said he was very chubby. Errol thought it must be the daughter of one of the emperor's concubines. Now it was still at an age when it didn't realize its true status. Then the concubines themselves came up, that they wished the prince a happy birthday and did so politely. The boy thanked them for their congratulations, asking them to enjoy the banquet. And they just turned the other way and didn't say anything, just walked away. It wasn't long before the banquet finally came to an end. And when it was over, the boy, along with his mom, was carried away breathing out a sigh of relief. Soon the empress approached, greeting Lefana. The boy's mother also greeted her in return, and asked if she had a good trip. Mrs. noted that everything was fine, there were no problems. All thanks to her son, the heir to the throne, for he was there all the time. Arel was well aware that she was just bragging about her son. But what else could he expect from the empress? Her Majesty meanwhile went on to say that the boy looked a lot like Lefana. She said he was nice enough. But the hero didn't want to accept that kindness. Thought for sure she must have had a hand in their plight. Even if no one cared, the castle financing case wouldn't have been skirted so drastically. They had to use knights to get firewood, and also clothes for the boy, as it turned out, were sewn by servants from rags and scraps. The empress wished the young prince a long life. For that, of course, Lefana thanked her. But mistress continued to stare and smile superficially. And soon the emperor himself arrived to offer congratulations. He asked Lefana if she was okay and if she was used to the castle. The woman replied that everything was all right. She thanked his majesty for his care. The hero from these words was simply amazed, realizing that they were on the verge of death. He wanted his so-called father to give him money and cover his living expenses. At that moment, he kept making strange noises, which in turn interested the emperor. So the latter asked Lefanu to give him the boy, for he wanted to look at him. When it happened, he was surprised that he wasn't crying. His other children roared non-stop when they saw his face. To spite him, Arkel smiled, and he wanted him to puddle under his feet with that stunning smile. Seeing his face, Theorel said this boy is funny, and the hero thought he wasn't afraid of him at all. He's about to do something that'll make you ready to pick up your jaw, and for that, he began to spin around. My father wondered what was wrong, if I should let go, whereupon he did so, setting the boy on the ground. Lafana realized it was a mistake and said that Errol couldn't walk yet. The Emperor was not surprised by this, for he was only a year old, no matter how twisted. Those present froze in anticipation of what would happen, and the baby, surprisingly to everyone, got up and slowly started walking. He wanted everyone to look at him closely, for he was the star of the evening. Chaina happily told Madame that the prince had taken his first step, and that was happiness. This action surprised the Emperor himself too, for the baby is full of surprises. The hero continued on his way. He thought that just a little more, and he would show that he was definitely different from the other children. And it's going to happen right in front of everyone, and the imperial family too. Walking over to the table, he pulled at the tablecloth. It, of course, crawled down, and with it all the dishes that were on top. When my mom saw what happened, she was shocked, which in fact is what happened to my father. But in fact, nothing terrible happened, because the boys had it all planned out that way. Recently, everyone was so excited about the prince's first steps and no one could even notice anything. It was a carefully planned strategy, and Errol chose the most opportune moment to do so, in which he abruptly decided he needed to back up, so that's exactly what he wanted. Presently, he lay beside the broken dishes and wept bitterly. I realize I just need to yell harder for better effect. After all, he's a child. Or what he is, after all. The Emperor was really taken aback by this, and he ran to his son and asked if he was all right. After examining him, he stated that the baby was not injured and had only doused himself with wine, and mostly thanks to God he's still in one piece. But it needs to be translated now. To do this, the maid asked His Majesty to hand over the boy, but he asked her to wait a moment. A clear emotion of displeasure appeared on his face. Touching the baby's clothes, he tore them, and underneath the top layer, he saw old, dirty clothes, asking what else it was. The maid could hardly believe her eyes either. She wondered how this could have happened since she had personally dressed him in new clothes that morning. It became clear to everyone that the Emperor would definitely not like it. Also, those present behind their backs began to whisper what it was he was wearing. That's pretty modest for a prince. So are they poor. Theorel heard all these whispers perfectly well, which of course caused me to get very angry and shouted for you to keep quiet. The aristocrats immediately fell silent and an awkward silence hung. Turning to Lafana, he inquired as to what kind of life was like. At that moment, the hero rejoiced in that his father was caught in a trap. This morning, the boy was being changed by his nanny, and he did something after she left. Namely, he concentrated his energy and began to stretch the fabric with all his might. It gave in easily, and making it look shabby was no problem at all. And if he had grown muscles, it wouldn't have taken much mana. Most importantly, he managed to get the inconvenient truth out in the open. Let everyone know what's behind the glossy exterior. The Emperor asked the hero's mother if she would deign to explain how such a thing could happen. Is it so hard to live up to status? The woman only mumbled something. That's when he informed her that she wasn't the one to ask after all, and immediately turned to his service named Jen. The one became wary and asked what was required of him. His Highness questioned how much money was allocated for the maintenance of concubine castles, and why such a thing was happening at an important event. The servant said that the master personally gave the order to distribute the budget equally, so everything was carried out in accordance with the order. Theorel asked, then exactly how equally? Next he shouted for him to bring him the report immediately. Errol was surprised that his father was determined, though he'd be more than happy to look at the numbers himself. Lafana apologized to His Majesty, stating that it was her mistake. The man said nothing in response to this, only handing her his son. The hero was only thinking that the mom, also the nanny, needs to be a little patient, and everything will be fine. This is a chance for them all. Naturally, the banquet, as well as all the festivities, were suspended for a while, and those present looked at each other, wondering what would happen next. Finally, Jen came back, bringing the necessary report. The Empress also froze in anticipation, and the Emperor read the reports and realized what had happened, after which he angrily clutched that report in his hands, and even used his power to burn it down, claiming he just couldn't believe it. Lafana was even a little wary when she saw his strength. Watching his father's anger, the protagonist realized it seems the Emperor was unaware of all this, and that's when it became abundantly clear who was behind it all. Terrell turned coldly to the Empress, asking about whether she knew about it. He wondered how to make sense of it all. The wife did not give an immediate answer. Pretending as if she didn't know anything, she asked if something was wrong. His Majesty talked about how there was suddenly some hole in the budget and his concubines were receiving almost nothing. Continuing to faint, the Empress said that it couldn't be, but Theorel was not convinced at all. He said he didn't want to say he wasn't aware of it, but it was her direct responsibility to distribute the budget. And so it was the eldest son who came to his mother's defense, the heir to the throne. He turned to his father, saying that he was sure it was a misunderstanding. Mother would never dare to do such a thing. But the man asked what difference it made. After all, the manager is responsible for the mistakes of his subordinates, and because of her negligence, his little brother was left hungry and undressed. Then the boy looked regretfully at Errol. The hero didn't like that look. He didn't understand what he was hatching. He also showed his terrible, seems to have neither the charisma of the emperor, nor the cunning of the empress. His Highness kept asking his son if he wanted to say she had nothing to do with it. He didn't know what to say to that. Speaking to his spouse, Theorel remarked that he was disappointed in her. Those present understand you, the situations were agitated. Suddenly, Lefana came to the Empress's defense. She asked not to blame the lady, after all it was all her fault. She just didn't know that the budget wasn't coming in. The man was surprised, and asked what kind of mistake she was talking about. He also carried and bore the Emperor's child. That's enough to be considered members of the imperial family. In response to this, the interlocutor mumbled something inaudible. The Emperor touched her hand, not stating that she should already be aware of her status in society. And even Hay smiled sweetly when he said that, which clearly didn't please the Empress, and about knew unmasked on her facial expression. Soon, Terrell ordered that those responsible be found and brought to justice. He would not tolerate such mistakes again. Aaliyah had no choice but to agree. She declared that she would make sure it didn't happen again. The Emperor continued to say what he had already said. Next time she would be punished. The woman noted that she would definitely find the culprit and punish him severely. At the same time, she did not understand why he was so angry with her. Next, she went up to Lefana and told her that she was really sorry. She doesn't even know how to justify herself to her. The protagonist was well aware that it was a brazen lie. It's obvious she's faking it. In response to the Empress, the boy's mother said that she didn't need to apologize to her at all. Arel didn't like those words. He recognized the woman as a snake, and she must have known all about it. Next thing you know, Aaliyah swore it wouldn't happen again. But even so, the boys were not convinced of her innocence. He realized that all these women were just intimidated by her own power. Just like that, the main character's birthday came to an end. The hole in the budget was patched, and they found an extreme person quickly enough. It was a family of minor aristocrats, and they were made to look guilty. Naturally, without much trial, they were immediately executed. The maids discussed the fact that at the end of the investigation, they even pleaded guilty. But it is unclear what they were going to do with such a huge amount of money. At the same time, they were glad that their problem was solved after all. Hearing this conversation, and with the room, the hero was sure that the real customer escaped punishment. How cleverly the Empress had thought of everything. When the execution took place, the case was immediately closed. But the boy realizes this is unfair. It's not a big deal because when he grows up, he'll wipe them all out with powder. Let them just wait. And then he cried again because he wanted to eat. Hearing his cloak, the maid immediately jumped to attention. Chaina fed the boy say he ate well and grew big and strong. And he thought Shibari was still a work in progress. He'd be this baby for a long time to come. But at least the only work here is eating and playing. You can sleep after a meal, though. Some time passed after that. Errol woke up from his crib, wondering how long he had slept. Nearby, he saw the maid, who was also sleeping peacefully in her chair. And something interesting was going on outside. And there was a carriage standing there. It soon became clear that it was Mom's carriage. And she is also accompanied by knights. To look out the window, and the hero used his skill to fly up. Soon he heard someone coming toward him, and it was 4 people. But as I listened, I realized that wasn't true. There were only 3 of them. One of those people is his mom. He also hears the footsteps of an adult and 1 child. He also realized that he had completely forgotten about the babysitter and would be bad if she woke up and saw his power. So, I decided to get out of there as soon as possible so nothing would happen. As he was doing so, the front door to the room swung open. And that's where Lefana entered with a woman and a child. A mom saw her son grab the babysitter's cheek and pull. That's when she screamed that Yu's son didn't hurt the babysitter. She should be loved and obeyed, not what he did. Chaina saw a woman who had also arrived, and it turned out that this one was Mrs. Fenelia. She apologized to her for not spotting her right away and greeted her. The interviewee was not proud, saying that it was no big deal. She herself had not warned anyone about coming here. This woman, the protagonist, remembered very well. This is another of his father's concubines, and as he realized, her name is Fenelia. Lefana noted if she had known in advance, she would have met them better. To which the guest stated that it was no big deal. She kept quiet about you arriving incognito here. Next, asked her daughter to sit here and she wants to talk to the lady alone. Soon they were secluded in the room with a cup of tea at the table. Lefana was really curious as to why she had suddenly come here. Thinks this conversation will be really serious. The interlocutor interrupted her musings by turning to her. After which the woman choked on her tea, for she had not expected it. Next, she wondered what she wanted to tell her. The girl noted that she would like to apologize, but Lefana didn't understand why. Then Fenelia went on to say that she was apologizing for her behavior at Prince Errol's birthday banquet. She's embarrassed, so she apologizes. Lefan was really surprised by this behavior, so she didn't even know what to say. She knows her guest is Fenelia Kenzest. In the not-too-distant past, at the height of hostilities on the continent, her family made the greatest contribution to victory. There weren't those in the Empire who hadn't heard of the Kenzest family, but now it's a thing of the past. No boys had been born into the family lately, and the fame quickly faded. Rumor has it that they are severely cash-strapped after a few years. Lefana asked her if she had come because of her family, and the interviewee pointed out that it's true. They're all in debt. The Empress actually approached her and offered her a deal, and now the girl brought the gold coins she had received. The protagonist's mom stated that she didn't want anything, but Fenelia said she wanted it herself, realizes it's not enough to solve the problem. But it's something. She really is deeply sorry for what happened and wants her to know. May hate her, but don't let her think badly of her family at least. Immediately afterward, she turned toward the open door. Her daughter was there, looking at the books on the shelf. Now Lifana realized what had happened, and because of what. She just wants to protect her child from conflicts with other members of the imperial family. So after realizing that, she said it was okay. She also doesn't need the money, in truth, because she believes that Fielia's people are innocent. In response, the interviewee said there was no need to feel sorry for her, and I heard myself say that no one feels sorry for her. Lifana wants to say bluntly that they don't need to feud with them. She understands perfectly well and doesn't hold a grudge, so let her better spend that money on a gift for her young daughter. So I think it's clear to her now, and speaks to the reason why it is their palace that has been cut back so much. She's not sure, of course, but she thinks that's the point. Fenelia knew that very well, so reported that she was indeed right. It turned out that Lifana was Her Majesty's maid. Arel couldn't believe it, and wondered very much. But now he could see why she disliked her so much. Of course, he's very sorry actually, and so is his mom. He also wished the maid would stop shaking him. And the maid said his moods were very fickle. After making sure the young prince was all right, Hyeon returned. She went to Princess Kanya, asking if she had traveled far. The hero in doing so was going to repeat what he had done before. If he uses the energy, he can still listen to their conversation, and so he soon managed to hear the sounds after all. Mom said she could understand her, so she took that attitude for granted. However, she can't hide from her oppression. That's why I made a difficult decision for myself. Until Aurel grows up, she will protect him, and not let her hurt her family anymore. So I suggested to Lady Fenelia that we should be friends. From this, the interlocutor was surprised, and realized that it was no longer just a conspiracy, but an entire association of the concubine's powers. But that didn't scare her in the slightest, so she soon agreed. At least I'd understand if someone was suddenly cornered. At least I'd have a helping hand waiting for me. That's what it's for. Aurel found out that his mom knew everything, knew of the conflict between the Empress as well as the concubines. But now he wondered what she was going to do next, and whether he should prepare for it all in advance. Suddenly he felt someone approaching him. It was Princess Kania, but the boy wasn't happy about her showing up here. He saw that little girl smiling sweetly though, so she was smiled at, that was the answer, but thought to herself, just so she wouldn't be sticking it to him. The girl, however, started pulling on his cheek again and telling him that it was very soft and warm. Aurel's only thought was that she had nothing better to do. She probably thinks she's a toy. Chena saw what was going on between them, so headed towards them, asking what the princess was doing. The hero thought at least she'd save him. But no such luck. She also started laughing sweetly, saying they were very cute. Next asked the young princess if she would be visiting him. The little girl said that if she could, she was all for it. Those words ultimately achieved a hero. He only hoped for someone to help him. Time passed quickly enough, and the young prince was already 30 months old. He was already well on his feet, and he thought his 3rd birthday was coming up. Life is fleeting after all, but then again, so is it always. At the same time, he wanted to grow up faster, if you think about it. You still need to live to adulthood. They wanted to learn how to pick up girls as soon as possible. Although he'd been told before that he could pick up any girl in 10 minutes. As he thought about it from the hallway, the clatter of heels began to sound. Errol was immediately wary, realizing that this sound was very familiar, and it was Kanya who reported that she had arrived. But once inside and looking around, she saw no one. So I decided to take a better look around the room, and seeing her feet sticking out from behind the curtain, she pretended to say, "Isn't he here?" But soon jumped out to him and yelled that he was busted, asking if he wanted to play hide-and-seek with his little sister. The boy, of course, didn't want to, but she didn't care at all. He was dragging him, saying he should play, only he needed to go somewhere more spacious. Soon they were outside together and it was the boy's turn to look. After Fenelia's visit, the princess touched them directly. Of course, this didn't happen without the help of a soulless babysitter. But it's not a bad thing, if only because a strong friendship develops between Mom and Lady Fenelia. Suddenly the girl asked, "Isn't his little sister the best?" Errol is still small, but she can take care of him, just let her believe it. And when he grows up, he'll take care of her. So he should promise to come when she called him. The boy had no choice but to agree. That said, he couldn't understand why Kanya was so obsessive after all. The girl reported that she just adores him. Compared to Leonid or the same Meryl, they are much more fun to play with, so he is the best option. Arl thought, let him grow up, and she would regret those words. Kanya was very energetic, so grabbed the guy and told him they were going to go play somewhere else. He gasped from this embrace and mentally begged for help. And this the maid saw, telling the princess that the prince is at ease when carried like this. So she asked me to give it to her. She shouldn't carry heavy weights. She's still a little girl. Finally, the hero rejoiced and was glad that Kanya's maid was just an angel. The girl was capricious at this, reporting that she wanted to play. The maid notices, but how about we go do some drawing or listen to the classics? Turning up her nose, the princess informed him that it was very boring. So the interviewee asked what she would like to do. The little girl herself didn't know what she wanted, so she chaotically started looking for anything. And I found a stick next to me, which I immediately grabbed, claiming she wants to swing a sword just like that. She's seen Brother Kyle do it. Looking at her, Arl thought her centers of gravity shifted no balance even with the weight of the wood. He basically loves fencing himself, and even misses the feeling. The princess, at this time, continued to act out the scene of being defeated. The maid pointed out that real ladies don't fight. The girl didn't help me understand why it's okay for Brother Kyle and Leonid. The interlocutor argued that it was not good for her to get her hands dirty. Let her not even argue with it is so accepted. Above all, a princess should be elegant and feminine. While she was ranting about it, her gun was stolen. Naz immediately ordered the princess to give up her sword. But the girl noted that she would not do that. She would do fencing. In that case, the maid asked to at least get a smaller sword. And the hero thought about the fact that little sister Kanya was even starting to like him. More time passed and the main character turned 5 years old. And now he's riding a horse. But this horse, unfortunately, is still a toy horse. He's still a kid, and it's amazing. The maid asked him if he would like to ride a real horse. Errol said no, because it was dangerous. Chang noted differently, for all boys are interested in horses and swords. And it was high time he did too. The guy didn't like it. So he said that a prince on a white horse is a relic of the past. The hero thought out of all the experiences of his life, he hadn't absorbed properly just the single digits. It's like driving people crazy. He reached the top in fencing and defeating many strong opponents, and also had time on the magical field sizzling all the obstacles in his way. Every skill he took with him in his past life he honed to perfection. And now it turns out he doesn't even have much to do. Now he asked the nanny not to disturb him, to see he was busy, to which she agreed, wishing him a good last job. The boy, in turn, jumped on the bed and thought, what other work is there to do? After all, he would be resting. After a while, the nanny arrived at his house and gave him the not-so-good news. The boy asked if this was true, to which she answered in the affirmative. Tears were coming to his eyes on their own, and he thought it was necessary to calm down, just not to cry. So I just sat down in the chair next to you and sadly exhaled. Chaina was a little surprised, so she wondered if he was so unwilling to learn. Arel indignantly replied that he didn't want to. But the nanny pointed out that he's 5 years old now. It's time to experience the world around him from different angles. The boy asked if he didn't want to know anything. He's not interested at all. Chaina said he talks as if he has lived 100 lives. It's unclear how he knows anything at all. The hero shouted out that it wasn't like that, and thought about the fact that science was already in his liver. Just sick of learning over and over and over again, and it's like that every time. The nanny continued to aver that according to imperial law, 5 was the age at which it was time to start school. She in turn brought him even books. The boy asked sarcastically, but why so few? He picked up one of them and declared that he really liked books. Spit spins and will continue to spin. Chaina didn't expect this, stating that books should be read, not spun. Shame on him. He knows that many children of commoners just dream of learning, but they don't have the opportunity. Most of them can't even read. Therefore, the prince should respect books. You need to stop fooling around and sit up straight. Arel's only thought at that moment was how to escort her more efficiently. And when he came up with everything, he immediately fell on his back and started screaming that he didn't want to do anything. He yelled about not studying and threw himself into tears. Of course, at this lamentation his mother arrived. And the boy's concert ended with a knee-bowed pose and a diligent student. Here he was, already sitting quietly reading a book. He himself realizes that at that age he should be learning by now. But ironically, the more he tries to do so, the more he endangers the people around him. After all, the flanged son of the concubine and the emperor, the sooner they will want to get rid of him. It may indeed seem unfair, but fate has already decided everything for them. So he simply has no choice but to take matters into his own downcast hands. Chaina brought him tea, telling him that he should try harder. Then he would make his mom happy too. Prince stated that he thought he was too lazy for that. But the interlocutor was just asking me to think hard. If he continues to behave like this, Lady Lafana will be very upset. Errol knew it was true too. He didn't want to let his mother down. So he agreed with the nanny that he would study hard. But he thought he'd study everything except fencing. So he'd definitely get hit in the side. I'd like to send a lot of people there too. I wonder what he'll grow up to be without all this. And so the week of school flew by unnoticed. The hero was horrified that a mage from the tower had come to visit them. The maid noted that this man was here to help him learn magic. First of all, he would have to determine if he had a talent for magic, and then he could study it. The boy thought he didn't want to become a magician at all. This is a problem because if it's a strong mage, he's bound to feel its power. There's a lot of energy in him right now that he's accumulated over the years, and it's necessary to hide his abilities somehow. On the way, the nanny told the boy not to worry. Everything would go quickly and painlessly. And so they arrived in the guest room, where the mage was already waiting at the table. He looked at the young prince and the expression on his face spoke for itself. Arel had seen everything perfectly well himself. The way his energy flows inside his body. I wonder how he actually sees it. The wizard walked up to it and, examining it, declared that it was unbelievable. Shayna marveled, asking if their prince was a special child. The interlocutor noted that special was not the right word, but naturally, not in a stubborn way. The boy himself asked what was the matter. The man reported that he didn't feel any mana in him at all. The nanny was very surprised. And the wizard said that he even probed him magically but found nothing. It was then that Errol realized that he had successfully concealed his powers. On the way here, he diligently curtailed his mana circulation, and then concentrated it into one point, and I let all the energy that I had stored up go out. When he saw the mage's reaction to his appearance, he breathed a sigh of relief, because he couldn't see the mana if it wasn't there. And so the arriving wizard informed Mrs. Lefana that the prince had no aptitude for magic. She did not understand what he meant. The hero knew in the fact that he didn't find a single grain of mana in his body had its disadvantages. The man said, even a commoner can often see a bit of a bath, but a prince just doesn't have one. Errol wondered if he was doing the right thing. The boy's mom understood and said that means he can't be a magician. And in the end, he just ended up disappointing his mom. He's ashamed of it, of course, but that's the way it has to be. Everyone must think he's a weak and incapable toddler. And her incompetent son had just started his business. Soon a swordsmanship mentor arrived at the boy's door, claiming to teach him all the skills. If he trains hard, it won't be long before he's as strong as he is. The hero considered it sarcastically, because it was a young guy who was about 25 years old and no more. Errol realized that he was a Slovak, and he could see that he was as far from a true knight as the moon. The boy's body is hardened from so many battles with the most nightmarish creatures that this son has never dreamed of. It's not clear who he even is to teach it, but he couldn't talk like that, so he remarked to Ranfilu to start practicing. Let him teach him. Mentor asked to trust him, and he would definitely become stronger. A young student needs to start with the basics. The prince stated that he recently saw little sister Kanye wearing weighted weights to increase her physical capabilities. The teacher stated that this was quite normal for the Cancest family. The hero thought it was creepy, so he just asked what to do. Ranfil started showing the basic stuff for fencing, and that is flexibility and balance. He and the prince would start with the easiest, so don't let him worry. And so it wasn't long before he was trying to balance. It was balance training. To the boy's worries, he said he wouldn't hurt himself falling from here. Errol indignantly replied that he was afraid of any height and had no control over it. The interlocutor noted, so that means they won't move to flexibility. He is so young, so it should be very easy. But flexibility training was also not at all easy. Next, the instructor suggested trying something else. Have him point the sword exactly in the center to hit his target. Precision training was not successful either. Ranfel couldn't believe this outcome. The boy asked if he correctly understood that he was talentless. Put me on notice that this is just the first practice, so let him keep practicing, and it will all work out. You need to pick up your sword and keep going. While practicing, Errol noticed that someone was following him. But that's good. The more mediocre it is, the sooner they'll back off. And so rumors of the boy's mediocrity spread very quickly. It was discussed behind their backs that Prince Arl had no more mana than a commoner. The Empress was also told that his body is so weak that he can barely stand on his feet. It is reported that he has no talent for acceptance at all. The woman smiled, claiming it was a pleasant thing to hear. And the hero knew that rumors could calm one's guard. He'd had his fill of it. After a while, the boy asked if the new teacher would arrive. The maid said he would surely come. Now, everyone who is not lazy says that Errol is a useless prince. Almost all teachers refused to teach him. And yet there was a hero who dared to come here. Soon, the pounding of hooves was heard from the street. That's just as the carriage of the main teacher arrived. The man introduced himself, and stating his name was Hamil Parnea. He would be the boy's teacher from today, and to teach him foreign languages. Looking at his face, Errol wondered if he had been forced, for there was a look of desperation on his face. Placing the books on the table, the man said it was a standard manual. It will allow you to learn the basics of grammar in just one day. This is the normal pace of learning tomorrow. The plan is to move on to a new topic. The prince would get the hang of it quickly, so don't let him worry. The hero didn't understand what was wrong with him, but said that he would try his best. The teacher said that bad grades are possible, but there is no need to be upset. Studying is first of all a matter of interest, and then of ability. The boy didn't understand why he was telling all this. At least he had asked his opinion on all this. He hoped that he wouldn't just ignore him. Night came and yelled, sneaking into the library. He thought he was small, but he was good at languages. 'Cause I've studied them a lot in all my past years. Errol's linguistic abilities are quite good. Soon he began to use his abilities. It was necessary to find a dictionary first. With the power he used, he could get books from the top. In the process, I decided that perhaps more foreign literature should be taken. In general, he collected quite a lot of books, and stacked them all neatly on the table. Realized that there really is a lot of interesting things in the world. Still, composed along similar lines. So it's only a matter of time before he beats his own teacher. Time passed and the lesson hour came. The teacher was telling the boy that he was making a bad joke. It is unclear how he only has the tongue of a doctor that he has learned all the material. The hero pointed out that he wasn't lying at all, it was true. He then asked if he should start talking. The interlocutor wondered if he had really memorized everything. So I asked him about it. Errol declared that there was no reason for him to lie, and thought, compared to languages from neighboring countries, the native imperial language was still a bit difficult. Not trusting the young gentleman, Hamel asked to read this book. The hero realized, no matter how smart a child is, reading even one simple book before the age of 13 is hard. And here was a 5-year-old child learning languages in just 2 days. The boy enthusiastically began to read the foreign book correctly, which amazed his interlocutor. He was delighted, saying it was great. So when a student succeeds, the teacher's reputation is enhanced. Errol was proud of himself that someone admired him. They continued the lesson, and the boy chose something he could afford to be a genius at in high places. In the society, people were discussing the fact that Errol was unable to even hold a sword. It was incomprehensible how such a person could learn languages in just 2 days. I wonder if he might be good at the exact sciences as well. Rumors that the prince is a bit of a smarty-pants spread quickly, and the source of these rumors, his teacher. He said he could just see a lot of potential in him, and every child has a hidden talent. In doing so, he is merely helping him to reveal it in all its glory. The boy's dear teacher scratched his tongue self-consciously after a small success. Finally, such rumors reached the emperor himself. He noticed that the prince was a genius after all. Apparently sword or magic just wasn't his style of doing something he didn't like easily. Lafana was truly sorry that she and her son had upset him. In doing so, she thought her son had changed a lot, which meant there was the question of whether she was raising him right. Seeing her concern, Theorel asked if she was worried. He thinks his son is growing up to be a wonderful boy. As usual, Aurel overheard their conversation and thought he would still show wonders, but they were better served in doses to maintain interest in his person. In the meantime, we can relax and reap the benefits. For now, his name is Genius. It's been a few days since it happened. The knights lined up in a row, and the commander commanded them. The boy looked at them admiringly, saying how many knights they had been allotted. Surely the emperor must have decided that it was necessary to better protect someone who couldn't fight himself. After all, his dad really is a caring emperor. Suddenly there was a knock at his door, and the boy was startled to ask who was there. It turned out to be the maids who had dragged to some sort of chest. Errol asked what was inside. That's when his mom came into the room, claiming they were gifts from His Majesty. The son was actually surprised that the emperor had a gift for him. Lafana stated not to ask too many questions and opened up. What he saw there really amazed him. These were gold coins as well as various jewels. Such a gift the hero was indeed delighted with. He was interested in one pendant in particular, so he asked what it was. The maid ignored him, asking him how he liked the emperor's precious gifts. But the boy was persistent and said he was asking what kind of pendant it was. The answer he heard, it sounds like it helps one to concentrate and activates one's mental faculties. But it's more of a thing that makes one's brain boil, and one gets very tired. Their principal is very well read, and that's awesome. The hero realized a normal person sees only a jeweled pendant, but he sees the mana inside the stone. He has no use for it, though. Maybe you should give it to your little sister. She's been working out so much lately, she's about to become an orangutan. Soon, he declared that he wanted to give it to his little sister Kanya. Mom pointed out that it was a gift for His Majesty, but she didn't think he would mind giving one thing. Then they went on to discuss the jewels, and it was a happy day for all the inhabitants of the castle. For the emperor had lavished a generous gift on the prince. The captain of the knights also handed out the admonition that everyone should understand the task assigned to them to protect the concubine's castle and take pride in that mission. Errol was sitting at the dining table, and Nanny announced that desserts had been served. These are the chef's finest pastries. To test it out, the boy decided to give it a try, but realized with chagrin that this was not the case at all. The woman asked him to eat slower. Was it really that good? But it was the opposite. He shouted that it wasn't tasty at all, they were hardly sweet. The girl was surprised, for the cook had vowed that everything would be delicious. So she asked if she should call him. And that's when Errol told her to call the alchemist, not him. Thought about how he really wants a Coca-Cola, so he needs the help of an alchemist to create its bite. The maid asked a question. But why an alchemist specifically? And the boy immediately mewed. You know perfectly well that she wouldn't understand even if you explained it to her. It's still strange when a 5-year-old child demands to call an alchemist. But creating the flavors he likes without the help of an alchemist is simply unrealistic. He has no idea how food is processed to get the flavor of the same cola. There's no such technology in this world anyway, and he wants a cool carbonated Coca-Cola so badly, but it's unclear how to get one. Further decided that it wasn't worth Brian's fascination. After all, he's already a genius, so he'll figure something out. That's why he ran away from the table, and when asked where he was going, he said to study. Chaina couldn't believe her ears, wondering if she had accidentally misheard, and the boy ran down the halls thinking cooking was chemistry. In that case, he really needs an alchemist, and he should try that. 3 years have passed since then, and the Areolas are now 8 years old. There was a meeting going on. The old man said that the country was planning to build new bridges, mostly in areas where traders were active. Having finished his report, he asked the prince what he thought of the matter. The boy was very involved and stated that it was quite an interesting idea, and further inquired as to who designed this bridge. The man at the table proudly told the gentleman that it was him, working on this project day and night. Suddenly, Arl stunned him by telling him that if he brought any more of this kind of bullshit, he'd fire him. It looks good. But if snow accumulates in the winter, the whole thing will collapse to hell. It's too congested here. It's not safe for citizens who choose to operate such a structure. They invested in the scenery and pomp, with absolutely no thought at all to how the function might perform. There is still a lot of work to be done. The designer stated that he would fix it immediately. It turns out that because of the extensive knowledge of the protagonist of the highest roof was loaded with work, he was only advising the minister, using knowledge of technology from his other lives. 8-year-old counseling officials? That's some nonsense. But where they're supposed to go is unclear. Now is the time to show off your skills. After the meeting, the hero went outside and was seen by the maid, who said it was a silver-haired sage. Upon hearing this nickname, the hero was shocked, not sure why it was so stupid. She soon realized that the boy had heard her, so she apologized. He asked where the stupid nickname came from and asked her not to call him that from now on. She replied that she would certainly keep it in mind. It turns out people made up a stupid nickname for him after all, and it's just a lame nickname. Next he headed for the carriage, which soon departed. Lefana saw everything that was going on from the window and asked the maid where Errol was going. The girl noted he had requested an audience with His Majesty. With that, she startled the boy's mother. She wondered what it was for. The maid knew this, and the boy went to the emperor to study alchemy. The way his father reacted was amazing, but since he accepted him so quickly, it means that he has gained his special favor. Though he really works hard for the good of the whole empire. Admittedly, even with so many lives under his belt, he was nervous during their conversation. Of course, he had to be as eloquent as possible, but unobtrusive. As the conversation went on, the emperor asked if he wanted to study alchemy. Why? Errol noted. He feels he must do his best to benefit the empire. And he has the opportunity to do so in the field of alchemy. Since he's not strong in swordsmanship or magical arts, all he's left with is science. Such words my father did not expect to hear and thought, though he is a hammerhead on his shoulders, quite sensible. Consequently, said he would provide him with an alchemy tutor, asking him if that was all he wanted or if there was more. The boy noted, that was all. Next they only smiled at each other, and he thought he had done well. After it was announced that Prince Errol needed an alchemy teacher, a line of candidates quickly lined up. It was an opportunity for them to make their mark on history. A test task was set to create a mirror that could reflect sunlight all the way to the horizon. Soon there was a man who did the task perfectly, and it was a true alchemy expert. The name of this lucky man was Darman Langet. He arrived at the young master's house and said it was very beautiful. When Aurel saw him, he was surprised, for he thought they would send an old man, and wondered if his hair was natural or if it was his hair. The interlocutor was a little surprised, but said that it was not a natural hair color. It's just that he did a lot of chemical experiments in his time and breathed all kinds of crap, so they turned white. The hero realized what had happened, but wondered how he'd only stayed alive if he'd been sniffing around like that the whole time. Outwardly, he's quite calm, but I'm sure it's just a mask, because alchemy is a ruthless thing. If he gets hurt or dies during the research, there will be no one to blame. Darman said, daring to warn the prince that the study of alchemy is a rather dangerous endeavor. It's a science that can be very expensive to learn. The hero noted that he had already weighed all the risks. Alchemy is a science, not magic. He doesn't expect the one to teach him how to make gold out of lead. The boy just wants to explore things like metal alloys, like finding the strongest of them all, or create a material that makes it easier to build houses. Such a teacher was not expected, and realized that the rumors did not lie. The prince is indeed different from everyone else. He is indeed the one who will lead their empire. So soon he offered to explore together. He would teach him everything he knew himself. It's been a few days since I started studying alchemy. The instructor asked His Highness if he had studied alchemy on his own. The boy was wary, thinking, is it really that obvious? To ward off suspicion, he remarked that he had only read a couple of books. Darman realized, so the rumors weren't lying. Errol was glad then. It seemed his mentor didn't suspect anything. Their class started early in the morning, and ended when the sun was already setting. The boy suggested that the tutor probably wanted to use shells or bones to make the iron alloys stronger. The tutor confirmed that he had understood him correctly. Errol now knew how to extract lead and other chemicals. Except for metals and medicines, everything else was identical to what he already knew. Suddenly, he casually blurted out that there was not much difference. Darman looked at him in surprise, but the prince immediately claimed he was just talking to himself. He realized that everything was going perfectly and strictly according to his plan. Soon the emperor was informed that a petition had been received from Prince Errol. It said that he wanted to expand the alchemist staff to 4 people. The emperor ordered the best alchemists in the empire to be assembled. His underlings, however, were worried. They asked what the prince was going to do with these alchemists. If they started spending the Empire's budget on their research, the people might be outraged. Theorel immediately remembered that audience when he had discussed the matter with his son. Therefore, he firmly stated that the prince was practicing alchemy for the good of the Empire. To the arriving alchemists, he informed them of his intention to create something new. A drink. One of the men, visibly wary, inquired what exactly he meant. I wondered if it was a culinary invention. Arel noted with a satisfied smile that he had been understood quite correctly. He had already thought of a plan that could help spread the word. It seemed that by relying on this approach, much could be accomplished. But before he could add anything else, the expressions on the faces of those around him faded noticeably. Some of the arrivals reflected on the fact that despite his intelligence and talent, the effort was to create just a drink. Some even felt a little sorry for leaving their previous jobs for such a dubious project. To dispel their doubts, the boy carelessly tossed a few gold coins. Attracting attention with this, he hastened to assure everyone that there was no reason to worry. The reward would exceed all expectations. The importance of success was in the background. Any result would be paid for, regardless of the outcome. The man who had asked the question earlier only sighed and nodded as if agreeing to the inevitable. Another participant remarked that the point is becoming clearer. The prince seems eager to get his hands on a special kind of sparkling water. Although similar designs already existed, it was obvious that this time it was about something created from scratch. At that moment, the protagonist hoped for only one thing, that everyone would make every effort. After all, money and fame can inspire, which means that the work will go faster. A few days later, shipments of mineral water were delivered from abroad. The boy reported that they now have the samples they need. Darman looked at the liquid with some disbelief, wondering if it was even drinkable. Outwardly, she didn't seem to be of much interest. The hero, after studying the water, suggested that it was now unlikely to match the intended, but it was only a matter of time. Soon an unpleasant odor wafted through the air, causing confusion. What this strange substance was, it was just something awful. In a hurry, he began to check the other barrels, but no meaningful results. Then he stated that natural mineral water was not suitable yet, and proposed to create artificial water. The interlocutors immediately, almost unanimously, asked how exactly they were going to do it. The young prince replied that he had already developed a theoretical framework and asked them to evaluate and finalize it. He will wait for the reports at the next meeting. Arel firmly believed that his alchemists were the most talented and intelligent. To be sure, he turned to his mentor, and the latter confidently confirmed. These men were indeed the best in the entire empire of Ernizia. The boy remarked with a smile that it was time to put the theory to the test. Could there be anything more exciting for alchemists? As he left the room, he wondered for a moment if 1 week would be enough for them. One could only hope that the motivation he tried to instill would be enough. A week later, Arel turned to the esteemed alchemists, fervently proclaiming that he swore this discovery would turn the entire empire of Ernizia upside down. He urged them to welcome the new trend of the season, carbonated water, which he described as the real fuel of progress. In his heart, he doubted whether it would be possible to create even a remote analog of the conceived drink. But to his surprise, it became a reality. And now, he could not resist the desire to taste the result. Mentor cautiously asked if he was sure it was safe. The others didn't seem to be in a hurry to take the first sip, but the prince easily dispelled their doubts, urging them to just give it a try. All he had to do was mix water with fruit juice or alcohol, and he could drink it. Of course, he had originally dreamed of the taste of classic cola, but it was obvious that this was unlikely to be achieved at this stage. These were the first samples. It remained to be seen how good they were. Without delay, he decided to start with lemon juice. After carefully mixing all the necessary ingredients, he set about tasting it. And a moment later, a bright smile lit up his face. It was really good. Encouraged, he immediately asked everyone else to try the drink with him. It was necessary for them to appreciate the flavor as well. The alchemists were not very trusting of it, but it wasn't long before it was raving about that unique flavor. This lemonade was called Prince Errol's lemonade. This drink quickly gained popularity and spread even outside the empire. It attained the status of an expensive drink and became a luxury for all the nobility. It was soon naturally tasted by the count as well, wondering if the prince had created this. This is Count de Mint, and he is the lord of the northern part of the empire. A servant stated that it was true. It is said that the process of creation was personally supervised by Prince Errol. The drink has gained immense popularity and has become a luxury item. It's a great contribution to the empire's economy. Rumor has it that wagons of gold are constantly flocking to the concubine's castle. The count realized it was his mistake. He thought the prince was no different from most children. If I'd known, I would have gotten right on it. Now all he has to do is bite his elbows. Kania continued her swordsmanship training. At that time, she had already turned 16 years old. After demonstrating her skills, she asked Arel if he liked it. He remarked admiringly that it was amazing. She's really very cool after all. That's what her servant confirmed. Talking about her being a fairly professional swordsman, Errol thought it was true. She's even better than most guys her age, plus is a cutie. The girl was happy to be praised, and the woman remarked that she should take a break. Soon the sister was telling the prince that she had heard a lot about him lately. His miracle water had spread not only within the empire, but beyond. And that was great. Errol noted proudly that he was all about it. The girl noticed that it's true that it's straightforwardly the emperor's perfect son. He has no idea how people envy Lady Lefana. Errol really dedicated the development of soda water to his mother, Lefane Ainrest. The Ainrest family used to belong to the nobility, but soon became impoverished. They were left with a title and a small house. But they actually led a life of just flying. Learned about the unfortunate fate of the family of the main character's mother, he allocated and share in his soda business. And in this did not sell at all, because from those wishing to buy sodas was not an outpouring. Next, the boy created yogurt and monosodium glutamate, which quickly became sales hits. The finances of the Ainrest family had risen to the heavens, and now no company could compare with them. And so the luxury blinded the boy's eyes. Speaking of which, the horse remarked that he was really on top of things. Then Errol asked if she was jealous. He's bringing her lemonade and waffles and syrup to treat her. But suddenly he saw the weapon in front of him and was frightened. Kanya called him a braggart, saying that she had plenty of money too. He, on the other hand, had never learned to hold a gun. That's why she was going to teach him. The hero thought he didn't need to do that. But he couldn't help but agree, talking about how he'd be happy to learn from her, even though he'd seen the training himself in the grave. Soon their training began, and he thought they were literally saying he saw it in his coffin. The princess was showing him a simple combination and telling him to watch carefully. Errol thought he would try it again, but without much enthusiasm, so she might back off soon. She was striving so hard for her dream. The desire to become a better warrior and confidently hold a sword was all that drove her. Moved a fragile little girl, and she ended up being so strong. The hero realized that he would have to use his mana a bit to counter her. So figured they'd get some practice in now. Soon he was on his way in a carriage on his own business. People on the streets recognized him, saying it was Prince Arul. Naturally, the boy was excited about this, because so many people recognize him, so he feels like a star. He's got an escort around him like he's some kind of idol. Of course, this is all very cool, but I wonder why he was called in. Do they want to reward you for a job well done? Before, the silence and the emperor had made the boy palpably nervous. Now he was getting very used to it. At least he can get a free meal. He's so used to his father that he feels at home. Suddenly the man was taken aback when he asked him if he wanted a full-fledged government position. It may take some time, but I'm sure no one will object to his candidacy. So questioned how he felt about such an offer. Trying to shrug it off, the boy said he shouldn't, and thought he wasn't ready for life in the palace yet, and responsibility besides. At one bit of tea, he decided he needed to calm down, and reported that, to be honest, he doesn't even know how to respond to such a generous offer. He still has a lot of alchemy to work out, so he's not sure. The boy was worried in case he would give him a post like the first son and heir. The empress and the heirs had been quieter than water and lower than grass lately. That was why Errol kept a line he dared not cross. They still don't see him as any kind of threat, which is why he lives without incident. There's a difference between getting the emperor's attention and openly vying for the throne. He's not yet ready to fight his brothers for the seat, to be crown prince. Of course, there is the possibility that the emperor is provoking him. Perhaps that is the intention. Natural selection isn't just in nature. In the human world, it is also in full force. It is a power struggle in which the strongest survive and the weakest perish. Arel didn't understand why he needed all these matters of life and death right now. He certainly didn't need all of it, because he hasn't been interested in any of this for a long time. After a while he was riding a horse, thinking about the first ones moving so far away from the castle, and it has its own high, such a sense of freedom that words cannot convey. He'd been working too hard lately and never even thought he'd turn into an office rat. He used to roam the world looking for the strongest opponent for himself. It's nostalgic, but while there's time to enjoy that freedom to the fullest, riding next to him was Kanya telling him to slow it down. She had no idea he was such a good rider. The hero knew that this ride had only happened because of his little sister. To her, he informed her, he'd been practicing and she was as good a skater herself. That said, there's something else that's troubling him. It's unclear why it's a whole platoon of them being dragged around. They clearly have resentment written all over their faces. The girl noted that saying her would be enough here, but it didn't happen that way. The hero smiled because of it and said, I guess it's because of him. He apologizes, but freedom is getting harder and harder to come by lately. At that moment, he felt something strange and told his sister to stop. She couldn't understand what had happened. The boy felt a strange energy ahead. So he said that there seemed to be a monster in the woods. Kanya didn't understand why he thought that. The guy reported that he just had a feeling. And usually his guesses are right. So should stick traps in and see. The interlocutor had no intention of doing so, and only moved forward. Then the prince asked at least her guards to tell her it was dangerous there. But one of them reported that it's okay because the princess uses this forest for training. And here she was happily waving her weapon around and riding forward. Errol remembered how she had mentioned at the table that she was going horseback riding and asked if he wanted to go with her. Isn't he tired of sitting in a castle and working all day? So he suggests we go away, have some fun. Right now the guy thought she was sick in the head. She said it would be fun to have adventures, it's healthy after all. Which means adventure is healthy. Still, as dangerous as it was, Errol still went with her. I guess it's because he believes in her. He didn't have to worry because his little sister would protect him from all those monsters. He thought Kanya was a fool, but she had a lot of spirit. Soon a plan was created that announced that some of the knights would act as decoys. Errol created it. He further said that Princess Kanya and the rest of the squad were coming to the rear to deal with the monsters. It is necessary in a short time, but to mow down as many as possible. And then the girl will deal with the rest. Based on the battle plan began, and the princess was informed of 20 orcs. This inspired her, so she rushed to attack them. As a consequence, the monsters fell one after another from her fierce attacks. This is the first time the hero has seen orcs, and they are quite huge. But his sister's much cooler. Not only sword skills, but her speed and reflexes are simply impressive. The girl also has an unwavering aura that emanates from her image. With these qualities, she inspires him with those in attendance. Their fierce battle continued into the night. The prince and princess found themselves near the fire. Errol asked how his sister was feeling. She replied that she was fine. It had been a long time since she had let off steam like that. The boy asked her not to overdo it, for she would snap her beak and get ripped off. He thought it would happen like one fool, remembering his past life. Then such a mistake really cost him his life. Kanya interrupted his recollection by stating that the food was very good. With that, she reminded the guy that they were still kids, and he thought she was still a kid. Soon Errol asked his sister why she wanted to become stronger. It was a question she hadn't expected. But she said that since she was a child, everyone has been telling her that she is a princess, and swordsmanship is not a woman's business. People think she's just fooling around, and then she'll get bored with swordsmanship. She'll marry a man she doesn't even know and settle down. The hero realized that there was truth to this. Marriage of convenience is the norm here for the average aristocrat. Either way, you have to get engaged to someone to keep the family afloat in high places. Kanya stated that she just hates it, all she wants to live. Just like Obrat. It made him a little surprised. The sister added that she wants to earn money and prestige by doing what she is good at. To try for the good of the empire, and to be recognized by the people. For example, he's already being recognized on the streets. She too is so eager to glorify the Kenzest family, not by marriage, but by merit that no one can deny. And she wants to control her own destiny. Errol noted that she thought she was on the right track. His sister smiled because of those words, understanding the support, and said he was a good brother. She further informed him that they would be returning to the castle at dawn. The boy remarked that he was having a lot of fun, just as his little sister had promised. And while they were chatting about it, some creature flew in the sky. As the morning wore on, the battle with the orcs continued, and the knights were discussing the fact that she'd pretty much overpowered everyone already, and they'd better stay out of harm's way. After all, the girl can handle them just fine on her own. And while she was doing that, the hero turned to her and asked her to finish. Still, they must hurry in order to get back in time. Die in opponents. She's out of it anyway. The sister smiled and said, "Then they're coming back." But in doing so, saw his horse, asked what was wrong with his muzzle. Errol notices that it's weird, maybe he's tired. He doesn't think it's worth riding him, so jumps in with him. Then, one of the knights approached the princess and offered to view the horse to the experts. The girl, but it agreed. Next, Arella jumped on the horse and remarked that she would drive. Hero didn't resist at all, said little sister sees best, handles horses. Just like that, they all headed towards home together. Soon, and in the sky, a silhouette followed them. The protagonist felt it, and immediately looked at the sky. And the sister doesn't understand what happened, inquired about it. The guy saw some strange energy that appeared in the sky. He can't see anything there at all, but he can feel the aura. Someone is definitely hiding behind the clouds. To find out who was there, he concentrated his energy. Thus, he was able to make out the creature, and it turned out to be a wyvern. Next, he took charge of the horse and shouted to his sister to hold on tight. He told the others that there were wyverns above them, so they should scatter. His subordinates didn't believe him. They said they didn't see any creatures. Yet they may repeat that this is a place for training. The emperor hunted wyverns, but there's nothing like it here. He soon regretted his words. After all, the winged monster grabbed him and immediately dragged him upwards. Now everyone realized that the young prince's words were true, and began to run away. Kanya, looking at what was happening, couldn't believe where so many of them were coming from. The protagonist realized that the situation was really bad. Looks like there's a whole pack frolicking around, and this isn't some simple hunt anymore. It looked more like a massacre between humans and wyverns. Soon he was taken aback by one of the monsters, releasing a poisonous gas. They're already very strong, so it's not clear why they'd let them out once. Kanya was very worried about her people, but the hero realized the gravity of the situation and asked her not to be distracted. "We need to hold on tight so we can get out of here in time." Of course, the monsters weren't going to let them go released poison gas. Wizards came to the defense of the prince and princess. Using their fireball skills, they were ordered to protect the princess at all costs. And they did. Analyzing the situation, Errol realized that they couldn't escape. The wyverns were very resistant to magic up to the 4th class. Most mages can't even scratch it. The winged creatures continued to chase them, and it became clear that there was no way out. The hero decided that he would use mana like bullets. Western was once, it struck the creature immediately, and decided to continue his mana attacks. He thanked the magicians for their help, so as not to draw attention to himself. But soon the creature appeared right in front of them, and it was so close that it was almost impossible to hide from it. But it would turn out that such a critical situation was resolved by cutting the creature open. And it was done by a girl knight who told the prince and princess to run away to safety as soon as possible. Let them run away into the forest. Looking at her strength, Errol thought that this guardian was really good. It will buy them some time, and that's great. Suddenly there was a human voice. One that called them pathetic methodicals. Not understanding who it was speaking, the boy asked who it was. It turned out to be a dark wizard who had been hiding his presence during this time. The prince questioned who he was, and he saw that the stranger was holding a very suspicious staff. So once again he inquired what he needed. The interlocutor just smiled and mumbled something. Next, he used his power by releasing a magical volley. Errol was taken by surprise by this attack, and he didn't realize what was happening. The magical beams that the stranger created soon approached the people. They instantly struck the guards who were protecting the prince and princess. But Kanya as well as Errol were not hurt by this attack. A moment later they saw that the guards were already dead. Surprisingly, the dark wizard turned to Kanya and said she was a good enough runner, which is a wise choice. Heroes couldn't believe it. Turns out he knows his sister. So did he target her from the start. The stranger started laughing evilly and offered to have a little fun. Exerting his power, he questioned if they liked it. The prince continued to analyze the situation and wondered what that unpleasant aura was. A terrifying dark energy was spreading throughout the area at that moment. And the sister reported that the boy looked at the knights. They, who had recently been lying dead, began to rise gradually. The remaining knights were terrified, for they were the walking dead. But the worst part was that the dead wyverns also rose up. Errol realized that they had encountered the undead. The necromancer ordered his new subordinates to kill the second princess. He's going to fall back on these upstarts sitting on the throne. As he sent his army off to fight, he suddenly saw something strange. The hero tried to use his power, and thought that this man had really come for Kanya's soul after all. Next, he released the bullet he created from his mana, and she, of course, struck the enemy, killing him in a few moments. Seeing this, my sister couldn't believe it. Asked what it was. Errol noted that he didn't know himself. Perhaps it was the effect of his own magic. He'd read that it happened when you used a spell you hadn't summoned. The dead wyverns didn't go anywhere. The princess noted that the wizards died. Then it is unclear why they are still alive. The hero stated, "It seems that this spell is not tied to the wizard, but just a summoning for a certain time." So stated to his sister that it was time for them to leave and asked her to trust him. Night had fallen and they were in a dense forest. The girl asked what would happen now. The brother pointed out that since the leader was dead, the tenderness would probably be gone soon too. The soldiers must be looking for them by now, so no need to worry. Kanya thought he only knew how to work with his brain, so it's unclear where he got his campfire skills from. Errol asked to underestimate brains. He just knows how to use friction force in a book he read about it. At that thought, he wanted to use mana, that to express fire. But not now that he was staring so intently. His poor hands. But surprisingly, he soon managed to start a fire. Sitting by the fire, the princess sadly reported that she had started all this for nothing. The brother pointed out that it had been an accident, so it was unclear how she knew. The sister then asked if he was not scared. He, in turn, realized that she felt guilty, and that you were there for her. He said he was scared, but she was there for him. And wyverns really are so creepy. Kanya realized that Errol was scared too, so she put her hand on his, and thanked him. Today could have ended in great tragedy if it hadn't been for him. Now that the boy saw it all, even though he didn't notice it right away, she's really very scared. Sister said that most of the people who accompanied them died on the battlefield defending their lives. The imperial family is always under the radar, and this was the first time Sister had experienced it. So he's sure she's having a really hard time right now. That said, they still need to get home in one piece somehow, so they need to be on their guard. At that moment, the sky did not see the carnage between the two creatures. It turns out there's a griffin fighting a wyvern, but it's unclear why now. Taking a look, Errol said he understood everything. The cliff was where his nest was located. It looked like a wyvern was hunting a baby griffin. The fight between the winged creatures continued more and more fiercely, and there was the obvious fact that Sin was the battle he was losing. So soon his body, like a stone, began to tumble downward, right where the prince and princess were, and they had to flee in a hurry. A thick haze of dust formed where the griffin had landed. Errol couldn't understand what this attack was all about, but thankfully, he noticed that the wyvern at least flew away. probably didn't smell them because of the wyvern blood on their bodies. While he was looking around, he didn't even notice his sister disappear. It turned out that she was near the griffin's body. The boy rushed toward her, saying it was dangerous. Let it stay away. But she noted that it was all right. The griffin was dead. At the same time, she couldn't figure out what to do now. The brother only asked her not to say she wanted to dig him up and bury him. In her sister's hands was a small cub, and she said she was talking about his baby. Even though Arel was shocked, he said, "It looks like there's nothing left for them to do." At that, he thought he was reluctant to do it at all, but it couldn't be helped. The girl offered to take him with her, which dumbfounded her brother. And while they were talking, the knights found them, and Soap was glad they were all in one piece. The princess noted that they were indeed all right. She too was very happy to see her men both safe and sound. The knight noted, thankfully, that once the Amma had died, no more losses were expected. And suddenly she saw a griffin chick in the hands of the young mistress. And she asked if it was a griffin. The boy stated that this was true, and they arrived just in time. The sister wants to keep the baby. The girl was a little confused and asked what it meant to keep it. It's been a week since that very situation. Things gradually got better, except for one thing. They now have a pet, and it's a baby griffin. He woke Errol up, and the man kicked him out and said he wanted to sleep, but soon was already stroking his head, declaring that he was very cute. He didn't agree that he could stay here until his mom came. A week ago, he ordered the princess to be escorted out, for she must rest. And he also had to clean up the place, for the smell of a dead griffin might bring many wild beasts. The knights set out to carry out the order, for tents had to be pitched. Arel himself was still dealing with the body of a dead griffin. While everyone was busy, he discreetly cut open the griffin's chest and took out a magic stone from there. He in turn will be needed to tame the baby, and by now there was a clatter of hooves, and it was clear that the sister had arrived. So the prince told his pet to see who had come. Kanya ran happily, issuing the baby to her, calling him Fry. The little griffin obeyed her and flew towards her. At that moment, the protagonist was informed about the dark magician who had attacked the princess. He in turn was declared a felon. They are gathering any information about him, for he might not have acted alone. Then Errol asked who was the most vocal opponent of the imperial family, and soon realized that there were indeed many who wished to destroy them. The interlocutor didn't understand what he was saying, but the boy simply sent him off, stating that he could go. Kanya continued her reservation with Fry, and the hero thought about the fact that a very young girl had been attacked. It's really just some kind of animal cruelty and you need to keep an eye on her. Because they might try again, and the sister is his family after all, so he has to protect it. It is urgent to build up his aura, because he feels that by the time he is 20, he will definitely need it. Next, he asked if Kanya wanted to go out with him to have fun. She was interested. So soon they crossed their swords in a friendly duel. In this way, Errol wanted to improve his strength and weapon proficiency. In the process of the fight, he was even able to fight back against his little sister. Much to her surprise, the girl asked what that was just. He noted that he had started practicing and wanted to show her something. Kanya was indeed happy, asking if he was indeed self-taught. Errol pointed out that he was indeed self-taught. He just put mana into the punch, and those were the basics. The princess had a question about whether she was doing it wrong all the time. Her brother said he didn't mean it, just practicing a little differently. His companion called him a genius, and he said that his sister could learn to use her mana too, and he could show her how to do it. The girl questioned, but was he sure she could do it? The protagonist stated for her to just follow his instructions, and he's 100% sure that she caused to learn. Thinking about her brother being a good coach. That was because he had secretly injected mana into her until now. Soon he began explaining the new technique. And the knight protecting the princess was eavesdropping on the whole thing. As a result, the sister came to the hero's house every day and practiced swordsmanship using aura. As a result, her control skills exceeded his expectations. But there was one nuance that came into play. Kanya happily told Errol that she had succeeded. Then he said that she could actually use mana now, and wondered if Fry would like that. He was already quite the little guy and let out an affirmative. The boy noted that his mom was really cool, and he realized that it was only because of her aura that the cub had grown dramatically. And with each passing day, this burden only presses harder on him. He went on to say that the beginning had been made, and the next was a matter of practice. The more mana she had, the stronger she could become. Let him imagine howling on Fry's back. His sister smiled, noting that he did have a vivid imagination. Afterward, she asked the pet if it was okay with her. She would like to give it a try. The hero realized that this day really wasn't far off. Suddenly the front door to the room swung open abruptly, and it was reported that His Majesty had arrived. Errol wondered what the Emperor was doing here. He had heard that he was busy working in the north, so he wouldn't have come here for nothing. To find out what was going on, he greeted his father. Theorel stated that rumors had reached him that the boy had started fencing. My son said that it really got interesting to him. It is necessary to try oneself in other fields, not only in science. After recent events, he decided that he needed to learn self-defense, and also how to raise griffins. Watching his father's face, he realized that he was clearly proud of him here. Finally, the kid was able to show him all this, and I wonder if he is now worthy to stand in line with the other kids, or maybe above them. The Emperor's subordinates dragged in some kind of box at this time. Naturally, the first thing Errol asked was what it was. Dad noted that it was a gift to him. Afterwards, he asked him to try it out. This sword was made especially for him. Lefana, who was also present, noticed that the areola was still too small to own it. Theorel understood that, but boys liked the feel of a real, formidable weapon in their hands. So there was no need to deprive him of that pleasure. Surprisingly for everyone, and the hero promptly picked it up, and I was happy to see how cool he was. Thinking maybe I should really get into fencing. Looking at such a picture, the Emperor rejoiced. His son had no interest at all before, but now he was so happy. It was only that he had received the sword as a gift. Suddenly that same blade began to slash downward. Due to his age, Errol simply couldn't hold it and fell to the ground. But he did it on purpose, because he wasn't going to get involved. Even if he has a talent for swordsmanship, he doesn't want to show it to them. Because once he's mastered the sword, he'll be forced to fight for power, and he doesn't want that to happen at all. His efforts up to this point have not been wasted. No one had even suspected him until now. So he said that he really liked this gift from His Highness. It's a pity that he's not able to appreciate it properly. This sword is more suited to a talent like Sister Kanya. His sister asked in surprise what he meant. He didn't understand what she was so surprised about. It has become very strong and is barely inferior to the Imperial Knights, so it's definitely enough to be considered an elite. Though the hero realizes she still has a long way to go for him, but thinks she has a good chance of powering into the top 30 Imperial Knights in the near future. And her talent is really available to be recognized, so credit must be given to her, and he handed her his sword. The Emperor stated that he understood, but he will only agree on one condition. Let Princess Kanya show him her abilities. The girl was greatly surprised, as were the heroes not, understood why he suddenly wanted to. Although if you think about it, he's a warrior too. The boy had forgotten that their Emperor was a swordsmanship-obsessed jock. He told his daughter to show him how far she had come. If she could hit him with that sword, that would be enough. The girl immediately began to mumble something. Arl understood that her sister was afraid, but that was normal. Then he touched her, drawing her attention to himself, and to endure in a whisper, asked not to be afraid. Let her show him everything she had learned, thinking that the girl would definitely hurt the Emperor. She plucked up her courage and said she would do anything. Soon they prepared to begin the battle. Theorel reported that her rack is really good, but it's not enough. Arel couldn't understand if he was judging her on looks alone. Kanya even resented his words and asked her father to get ready. After which, she immediately rushed into an attack using mana. Lefana was surprised to see this, not realizing how this had happened. The boy thought that everything was working out perfectly. Her speed was top-notch, he wouldn't blink an eye. Her strength and mana concentration were pretty good too, so sis is really good. However, there is something that confuses him, and that's why you're hitting him in the forehead like that. That's all he's waiting for. He's smiling like a bigot, and he's not embarrassed by anything. Raising his blade up, the Emperor easily blocked this lunge. The daughter certainly couldn't have expected that. The sparring partner reported that Princess did a pretty good job of taking a punch, and it was quite strong. He had never seen such an aura in a child except for their knight commander, so she was definitely doing well. The princess wasn't going to admit defeat just yet and said that it wasn't over yet. Theorel, at that, turned to his son. Stating what he'd heard, he'd helped her with fencing recently, as to whether it was true. The boy pointed out that this was true. He had tested some things out, and his theory worked perfectly. He had read in a book how to increase the potential of a swordsman and decided to try this method with his sister Kanya. As the possessor of a Mancian aura, she was just the right fit. The Emperor remarked. Then it turns out this method works on others as well. Arl realized the old man was a trickster. He must be trying to pull him into some dirty business. But he had the wrong guy. Unafraid, he contemplated some sort of mass production of Rey's aura to create an invincible army that no other could match. But the guy wasn't going to let that happen. Said about whether he had about the same results as the princess, then he would disappoint him. The sister had high potential from the beginning, because she's been honing her skills since she was a little girl. And that's only because of natural talent and perseverance. That's how she managed to get this far. Theorel said a little disappointedly that he understood. And the boy thought about the fact that really anyone could be helped, where there was room to sort out weaknesses and bring out strengths. But to train everyone individually was too torturous. Particularly if there's a speech, it's about men. The last thing a guy wants to see every day is this testosterone parade. His eyes, after all, are made for beautiful things. But he shouldn't flatly refuse because it's suspicious. So he pretended to think about it, thinking about calling it some super secret technique only available to a select few. So stated that he thought this method would only work for their family members. The interlocutor was a little perplexed by this.